All right, hello everyone and welcome. This is the last session of the day for the NC Live annual conference, and we're excited to have you with us. You are in the session Making, Managing, and Marketing a Wellness Collection in an Academic Library, scheduled for 3 p.m. My name is Claire Leverett, and I am the Associate Director at NC Live. And as the moderator for this session, I just have a few things to share with you before we begin. So at NC Live events, we value the presence and active participation of all attendees. By joining us, you agree to uphold the principles of our code of conduct, which can be found on our website. And I'm going to link to them in the chat as well. So in the interest of time, we will save question and answer for the end of the presentation. If you have a question, you may put it in the question and answer box, which can be found in your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the screen, or you can put it in the chat. I'll be monitoring the question and answer and the chat in case anyone needs assistance. And please make sure you stay muted during the presentation. This session is also being recorded, and both the slides and the recordings will be available after the event. Now I am pleased to introduce Maia Dickinson and Jemma Johnson. Jemma Johnson is a research support assistant at Wake Forest University's Z. Smith Reynolds Library. During her 4 years in academic and public libraries, she has worked on numerous projects spanning DEI collection development, collection browsability, and holistic library services. Maia Dickinson is the Public Services Assistant at Wake Forest University's Z. Smith Reynolds Library. She's worked in a variety of roles in academic libraries and holds an MLIS from Simmons University. And now I will hand it off to Maia and Jemma.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our presentation, Making, Managing, Marketing, and Wellness Collection in an Academic Library. There we go. All right, even after that wonderful introduction, I'm going to run my name by you one more time. I'm Jemma, and I'm a research support assistant at the Wake Forest ZSR Library.
And I'm Maia, and I'm a public services assistant also at ZSR, so we work together in the public services department. So the first thing we're going to review is how this collection came to be. Going back in time, when Jemma had been here for a few short months and before I even worked at Wake Forest, our boss, ZSR's Director of Public Services, Rodrigo Castro, led a group that applied for and won an innovation grant, which are annual grants given out by our library from unrestricted funds, in this case, to create a wellness collection. The aim of the collection was to focus on mindfulness, meditation, stress reduction, physical exercise, nutrition, sleep, hygiene, and other wellness-related subjects. And the idea was to use the entire grant, so in this case, it was $1,450 to purchase new physical materials to start the collection. So again, still in the early era before our involvement, the group collected feedback from various campus groups, including our ZSR ambassadors, which is a student group of library enthusiasts that we frequently draw on for feedback, ZSR's own Wellness and Sustainability Committee, and our campus Office of Wellbeing. And when I started at Wake Forest roughly a year ago, one of the first things I did was research what other libraries, and especially other academic libraries, were offering in terms of wellness collections to see what was going on in this space. And the answer was a lot of things, a super wide variety of collections. We saw collections heavy on sports gear, emphasizing time outside and physical activity, collections heavy on social items like games and karaoke machines, collections with a lot of crafting items like sewing machines or kits to learn how to knit or make buttons. And outside of physical circulating items, we saw that a lot of wellness collections also featured a sort of online wellness hub. So a web page or a LibGuide that brought together links to catalog resources, but also like meditation videos and soothing video feeds of otters or puppies, playlists, downloadable coloring sheets, recipes, workout videos, like truly a wide variety of resources. So our initial brainstorming and input from campus groups, combined with what we saw other schools to be doing, gave us a lot of possibilities and showed us a wide variety of directions that we could take the collection in. So to give us some focus, we considered a couple of factors or criteria. We thought about reusability, especially in a post-COVID world. It's important that all the items could be cleaned and are something that people would be comfortable reusing. So even though we have a dedicated napping space at ZSR Library, circulating sleep masks, like something like that didn't feel quite right. We generally eliminated things that were soft in nature as they couldn't be like easily wiped down and disinfected. We also considered usability in the library. This was not necessarily a rule that we stuck to with all of the items, but we wanted it to make sense that you would get this item from the library and also preferred it to be something that you could use while still in the library. And finally, we considered what existing resources were available elsewhere on campus. So there was already a vibrant lending program at our wellness center through the outdoor recreation. You can rent like soccer balls and frisbees, but also some more expensive things like tents and kayaks. That was perhaps never a direction that we were seriously going to go in, but we at least knew from our research that that was completely covered and available elsewhere on campus. So we had this working list of ideas and then a list of criteria that we started to review and cut things down and make the initial list of items that fit within our budget. So we cut some things that we felt just we weren't super confident about how popular they would be. Some of the things we got rid of included handheld electronic games that felt redundant for anyone who owns a smartphone or computer, which is basically our entire user base. We also got rid of an animatronic companion cat that we love, and you will be seeing again before this presentation is through. But we felt like it was more like a soft item. We weren't sure people would feel comfortable like cuddling up to it, knowing that other people had before. I did hear a presentation earlier today about the wellness collection at Davidson, which does include a cat. We are officially jealous.
Yes.
But moving on. We also eliminated a large print keyboard and a text-to-speech reader. We actually had several accessibility items on our list, and they were also some of the most expensive items on our list. While they're things that we'd love to have in our collection, we decided that they were somewhat out of scope, and that the proper approach for these would be to later propose and develop a more fleshed out accessibility collection, which is just another topic for another day. So what did we buy? We ended up with a balance board, very kinetic, can help with engaging focus muscles. We also realized after we selected that we didn't have anywhere like any standing height desks in the library. So we got a standing desk that can be paired with the balance board or can be used on its own. We got 3 cell phone lock boxes, which is exactly what they sound like. So you put your phone in, you set a timer for 15 minutes, for 3 hours, whatever you can commit to. And you cannot access your phone during that time. We also had 0 way to override this, which was interesting. We got some colored pencils, we got foam rollers, we got a guided meditation machine, we got a karaoke machine, we got white noise machines, and we got 3 light therapy lamps.
All right, thank you for the rundown, Maya. Now that we've chosen our items, we're going to move on to the practical aspects of organization, maintenance, and the loaning of the collection. For budget and simplicity, all of our items were purchased from Amazon along with the materials needed for processing. For processing, we did use the same system of zippered pouches, zip ties, and card label holders were used for the other physical items in circulation at ZSR. Once the items arrived, I unboxed them, had a little photo shoot for photos for the website, and then added them to our catalog before packaging them all up for circulation. When it came to finding a home for the collection, we surveyed the available space behind the front desk. For where we're going to store it, we used about 1.5 shelves for the collection. The larger items like the karaoke machine in its case, we stored on the floor beneath the shelves. Now, when it comes to the day-to-day maintenance of the collection, we were intentional in the selection process, as Maya mentioned, for items that don't require a lot of cleaning. Of course, we do have sanitizing wipes behind the desk for requests for patrons. All items in the collection have a loan period of 7 days. We landed on the week checkout after weighing usability and availability of the limited number of items in the collection. Since it wasn't very big, we wanted to make sure if someone came to the desk, they would have something to check out. With the way our ILS is set up, I found the best method for tracking loaned items was to run a report and then personally contact patrons about overdue items. Luckily, though, we haven't had much of a problem with it and there hasn't been many issues.
So once our items were cataloged and ready to circulate, we needed to tackle visibility. And we'll get into marketing as an entire section of this presentation later, but here we're just talking about baseline visibility. So all items were added to our catalog with the pictures that Jemma took, as you can see in the screenshot on the left. And I don't think that someone is going ever to open Primo and search karaoke machine, not knowing if we have one available to circulate, and that's how they would discover that this exists. But I could imagine, like, if someone is like a power user of those phone lock boxes and they're having trouble focusing and they're on the 8th floor, our circulation desk is on the 2nd floor, you know, they might search it just to see if there are any available, because the status is really visible in the catalog, you know, before they come downstairs and decide to check one out. And then we also added, as you can see on the right, a dedicated page on our website that shows all of the items in the collection, and those all just link back to the entry for that item in Primo. Okay, so we had talked earlier about how from our research, we'd seen that many schools choose to have a wellness collection, that do choose to have a wellness collection of physical items, also have a wellness hub for resources online. And this was definitely a component that we wanted to develop. We knew that we had a lot of these resources, but they weren't naturally grouped anywhere in our library. I know for sure that I've been at the desk and had patrons come up asking where like the self-help section is, or maybe kind of dancing around some of the topics that fall under wellness, but might be a little more sensitive. And until or before we set this up, we didn't really have any one place to send them, physical or digital. So the working group that created this collection met with our resource services team to discuss how we might possibly do this. And a big feature that we were hoping to have in this collection was that it not require maintenance. So we really wanted the collection to self-edit as items were added and removed from our collection. We wanted to avoid that thing where like we set up a website and then in 5 years, you know, no one's looked at it, or hopefully patrons have looked at it, but if none of us have, that it would show a bunch of out-of-date material or appear empty if the items are no longer part of the collection. So our initial attempt to do this involved creating a collection based on search criteria. So we worked with like a combination of subject headings and publication dates, and we like removed certain academic publishers, and we tried all these things to try to get to like a core group of materials that were popular interests on wellness topics. We went down this road for quite a while, but ultimately we just weren't super happy with the results that we could get. And so the next thing we tried is we explored the possibility of creating LibGuides. And we liked that idea because they allowed us to incorporate a wide variety of media. So as we'd seen in the other schools that have been doing this, you know, we could put a bunch of items in from our catalog, but we could also have like the puppy webcams and the playlists and downloadable coloring sheets and recipes and all that fun stuff. So Jemma and I started working on those for a little bit before really realizing that like it was a lot and it would absolutely require a lot of maintenance and be pretty difficult and time consuming to maintain. So ultimately, what we decided to do was to manually curate a wellness collection as a sub collection in Primo, so just our catalog resources. And that Jemma and I would manually update them twice a year. And we plan to do this after the larger spending efforts each year. So kind of as the fiscal year starts to wind down, and then right after the start of the school year. And rather than just like having a general, you know, the wide world of wellness as one collection, we decided to create separate sub collections based on an existing framework that Wake Forest follows. So for a while now, we've had the Thrive initiative on campus, and that's based on Swarbrick's 8 dimensions of wellness, which are emotional, physical, occupational, intellectual, financial, social, environmental, and spiritual wellness. So Jemma and I split these topics up based on our personal preferences and started curating collections. And this slide shows how they now appear in our collection. So on the left, we have the overall wellness collection, and within this, there's a separate sub-collection for each topic. And for some of those, we even added a further layer of sub-collections. So physical just seemed way too broad. So under that one, we added sleep, movement, and then cooking and nutrition, all as separate collections. On the right, you can see what the emotional sub-collection looks like once you click into it. So it's super browsable, it's very visual, the book covers are easy to see. And we kept these collections pretty small. We have about 10 to 20 resources in each sub-collection. And we plan to keep it this way. our thinking kind of is that the like movements in these areas happen pretty quickly. And so we want to be able to eliminate anything that's kind of over like 5 years old and add things as we get them.
All right, so we've got our collection, it's in the catalog, it's showing up on our website. How do we get people to know about it? So when it came to marketing the wellness collection, Maya and I had to be very intentional with our efforts because there's not a dedicated staff member responsible for public service initiatives like this one. In order to develop our marketing strategy, we worked with ZSR's communication and events coordinator, Deja Bunn, and the library fellow, Maddie Kuntz, who is a recent Wake Forest grad. Approachability and sustainability were our focus points as we discussed different methods to target the various communities on campus, keeping in mind that what's approachable for students may not be approachable for faculty and staff in the same way, and that Maya and I don't have an infinite amount of time to dedicate to these efforts. We also might not always be overseeing this collection as staffing levels change and our responsibilities change, so we wanted to make sure our marketing could be continued into the future with someone else. After several meetings and many discussions, we landed on 4 main marketing methods: a dedicated episode of the library podcast, signage and displays, Take Care Tuesday events, which we'll discuss, and then of course, social media. Deja, our communication and events coordinator, suggested that Maya and I do an episode of the More Than a Library podcast to discuss and promote the wellness collection. At that time, both of us were still pretty new, so we thought it was a great idea. And thought it would be a great way to launch the collection, especially in light of our goals of approachability and sustainability. Podcasts are a familiar format and a more intimate way to reach people than like a flyer or a sign. And this podcast, fortunately, was already reaching an audience of faculty, staff, and donors. On the sustainability front, this was a single time commitment and will continue to reach new listeners, and the audio can be reused in other contexts as well. So let's hear it. Here's a little snippet from the podcast.
So, Jemma, I'm just curious, is there anything that was a hot topic that was discussed a lot that just didn't make it into the collection?
Well, there was one hotly contested and dearly missed item that did not make its way into the collection yet. You can always suggest an item and we will put it on a list to consider. It was an animatronic cat.
Did it purr?
It did purr, and it even looked like it was breathing. It was curled up like it could be on your lap or on the table, but unfortunately, it just didn't quite make it to ZSR.
Jemma, if we do get the cat, what do you think we should name it?
That is a great question. Maybe we should open it up for a vote.
Sounds good.
All right, like we said, we will circle back to the cat. But we had excellent results with multiple listeners and a couple library staff commenting about how much they liked the episode and were now interested in exploring the wellness collection. And if we can brag for a minute, I think those comments were great. Many of them talked about how funny we were together. And to my knowledge, we didn't get any comments about the most important part of the episode, which of course was the cat. Very cute. You can tell how much we missed him, but onward. So in conjunction with the release of the wellness collection and the podcast, I worked on creating various digital and physical signage to promote the collection. Signage is an advertising and library staple for a reason. Fun and friendly designs can capture people's attention and don't require patron interaction. Creating shared and editable designs is essential for the longevity and sustainability of your design program. Design is a strength of mine, so I created a core group of designs that can be used as handouts, digital displays, and social media across our own and campus partners. I recommend using Canva for these because it's free and has good templates to use if design is not something you're super strong or confident in. The evidence for the success of these is a little more anecdotal than we had for the podcast. People mentioned a few times to me personally while I was on the desk that they saw a sign, whether it was digital or physical, for the collection and were interested in checking it out. The table tents we made, however, with these designs I have here on the slide that went in our study carols were not great for traction. We didn't get any responses to the QR code survey on the back, but that's all right. Not everything works. That's why you do a couple of methods. All right, so circling back to Take Care Tuesdays. They are a pre-existing event that happened before both of our times. It's a reoccurring program that occurs shockingly on Tuesday and is used to promote library resources patrons can use for general well-being. Popular with students especially, we took advantage of its high visibility across from the front desk to allow patrons to see and interact with the collection, kind of like a little petting zoo. As with any program, there was, of course, a time and effort investment required for these. Working this kind of programming into the library's existing slate of events and having the event at different times makes Take Care Tuesdays a reusable event that we can continue into the future. The biggest result of Take Care Tuesdays was finding out how many students still had not heard of the collection when it had been weeks and maybe months when it had debuted at this point. In that regard, though, it was helpful to know that we needed to increase our marketing efforts to students specifically. We also learned how to improve the event for future use, such as having an interactive component to draw students in outside of free stuff, even though free stuff is great. All right, now for the biggie and any talk about marketing. Social media. It's convenient, it captures attention, and reaches people, especially students, where they are on their phones. Unlike signage or the Take Care Tuesdays, it also reaches people who are not actually in the building. The time and effort necessary to make social media posts does vary based on the type of post, like a photo or graphic versus a video, and the creations are reusable across platforms and time, making social media a sustainable option for marketing the collection. Taking advantage of the existing social media presence of the university and the library also magnified our efforts here as well and made it a little easier on us in creating these. Maia, the library fellow, and I made a slew of videos for the wellness collection over the span of a couple months to like ongoing till today. Because of how quickly social media trends come and go, it was very important to continue creating content for that maximum impact for what's popular. It was also well worth it because our social media promotions were by far the most successful of our marketing. A number of times a video would come out, and within an hour or even a couple minutes, a student would come down to the desk asking for whatever item was in the video. I know for me personally, we posted a phone lockbox video. In 2 minutes, a student had walked down to the desk and was asking to check one out. So that was a direct impact we could see.
Which like shows that that student was on TikTok. So like they needed it.
They needed it, so it was perfect.
Lockbox.
The library staff also loved the videos and checked out a couple items after seeing them. I know the foam rollers was popular for one of our people who have to like shelve a lot of materials and work out those library muscles. Also, involving our student workers in these videos, as you'll see, had the unintended consequence of raising their awareness and interest in the collection. All right, now, of course, I wasn't going to talk about our excellent social media without showing you examples. First up, we have an early video of an older but still popular trend that features our balance board that I will play for you. Yes, and that's not fake. I was actually really good at the balance board.
I was not.
That's why, yeah, well, that's why I was in the video. We can't get them all. Now, for our next one, we actually made this one a couple weeks ago, promoting our phone lock boxes again. And I know at least some of y'all will probably recognize the trend we used here. It also features one of our student workers.
Making music. Don't ask me how I did it. I just did it. It was hard.
And he was a real champ. That was like a one-take video. We just kind of surprised him with it, a one and done. So big shout out to our student workers. All right, now last but not least, we have one of the first video series we did promoting the collection. And I know it was very soon after the podcast because based on the nails I had, which you'll see why that's important. It's a classic internet trend. So if you're not an ASMR fan, I would go ahead and like plug the ears, mute the volume because it is an ASMR video featuring our wellness collection. So here we go.
Next, we have our standing desk converter.
All right, you can turn the volume back up if you are not an ASMR fan.
All right, so finally, we're going to be talking about how this all turned out. So here is the total circulation of the collection, and here we are just talking about these new physical items that we purchased expressly for the collection. So the standing desk, the balance board, the phone lock boxes. So this does not include the existing traditional books and ebooks that we curated into the wellness collection. And circulation is not super high. We'll be the first to admit. But we do think we are seeing a really good trend here. Barring March, which included spring break, our efforts do seem to be having an effect. Awareness and circulation are definitely increasing. Just overall, it's low, and it's especially low when we compare it to our peripherals collection. So that includes items like calculators and phone chargers and umbrellas, which, you know, is also a little less traditional and located physically behind the desk. So you have to request it to check it out. It's also a new collection. It is bigger, but we're easily seeing like 20 times the number of checkouts. And this is showing you the breakdown of how the total circulation so far is divided between the items that we have in the collection. So now that you've seen the data, Jemma will talk us through some of our takeaways from this.
All right, so first up, looking back on what went well, we can see that items related to studying circulated best, especially with our convenient little pie chart. And you can see that colored pencils made up 50% of that, and then phone lock boxes were that next big chunk. Social media posts also went well for us. They were the best of our marketing methods, and they had direct and immediate results. I mean, we had, like we said, people coming up to the desk referencing those videos within minutes of us posting them. Now for the good, we also get the less good. Overall, as Maia mentioned, circulation was low, with especially for bulkier items like the oversized foam rollers, as well as the items that don't have a direct tie into studying in the library, like the karaoke machine. As for marketing, as I mentioned, the table tents yielded no survey results and were not referenced in any item checkouts, but that's all right. Like I said, that's why you have your multi-pronged marketing effects. Maia, do you have anything to add on that front?
No, I think you got it.
Nice. Enough reflecting. Now for our takeaways, starting from the beginning of the collection process, a patron-centered and source selection process is absolutely key. People will only check out what they're interested in, and that's much easier than trying to convince people to pick items that we picked or that we thought, you know, we would want to get from a wellness collection. Also, despite the vibrant wellness culture on campus, the library remains unintegrated into it. This is partially due to the recent turnovers in the relevant campus departments, making it difficult to make connections between the library and those departments. And that's just something that we'll have to work on in the future. Also, we need to stay on that social media game, making sure the wellness collection continues to be promoted through those channels, and that study items should be prioritized in future additions to the collection. Now, for looking ahead, we want to take a more holistic approach to the collection by integrating it into the library's regular services and programming versus treating it just like an available resource like our phone chargers or our magazines. We're thinking of regular wellness themed programs such as crafternoons with our makerspace and big coloring like communal coloring projects during finals for students to take breaks with. Finally, forming those campus partnerships is essential for making the library be seen as a resource and hub for wellness on campus in the same way it is for academic achievement. All right, any questions, especially about the cat, maybe? No. Any questions, y'all?
That was great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing about the collection, and the videos were very entertaining. So thank you for sharing those. And also I kind of wanted to see a video of the cat, like cat in action.
I wish we had
I wish we had one. That's the problem. It didn't make the cut. So, because you know that'll be all over the social media if we get it. So
Yeah. We'll have to stay tuned to see if you're able to get it. So we have one question so far. How successful was promoting ebook resources?
Yeah, so the online section that we created for the so basically we launched the physical collection early in the fall. I guess we didn't mention that online component that we created for the collection did happen several months later. So we did not get that fully up and running until I want to say like February or maybe early March. So we have not looked at like because it's such a small time period, if we can really see a change yet in the circulation of those materials, just because we don't really think it's like had like a real good trial run yet.
Yeah, I mean, we did have QR codes on some of our flyers about it if people wanted to look, but like Maya said, we just didn't have a large enough sample size of time to really see any growth.
It was also, I mean, I pulled it like once, but it was difficult too, because some of the material is so new, which was intentional. But it just made like, we didn't have a good sample size from before we were promoting it or after we were promoting it. Like, it's just been a really short amount of time.
All right, so our next question is, do you circulate art supplies besides the colored pencils? If so, do they circulate well?
So we do not, but seeing the popularity of colored pencils, we definitely open to maybe adding a couple more art supplies. Mostly geared toward coloring and something you can do in the library rather than breaking out, the glue and scissors. Because we do have an excellent makerspace on campus and we have partnered with them in the past. They do have their own supplies and like their own paints. Like really, you can just show up and say, I want to do a craft, and
They
he's
have
already got the
everything.
stuff for it. So hopefully that's one of our wellness themed programs we want to integrate, that's like on a regular monthly or weekly, bi-weekly basis where the makerspace comes, and that way we can save money on getting those supplies, but you still get that wellness benefit of having it in the library.
And I do think for something as simple as the colored pencils, like we want to set up like a communal coloring sheet, like something like that during finals next year. Just that kind of everyone can stop by for a minute or two and get involved with.
Yeah, it's really relaxing. I know I would do it middle of the workday.
Yeah, when you were talking about the pencils, I was thinking to myself like, oh, those markers, like those, colored kind of thin tip, more like adult markers. I could
Fancy
see
markers.
those.
Fancy markers.
Yeah, like fancy markers. I could see those as being fun to use.
Definitely.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you for the social media compliments. Love those. Taking them to heart.
It's great that you have, it sounds like such an involved student population with your student advisory board and your followers on social media that, immediately see if something's been posted. It's great to have that student feedback.
Yeah, so we definitely want to, as we mentioned in our takeaways, like get that student feedback for getting new materials, because they really are involved and we want to take advantage of that.
Yeah, but I mean, on the social media stuff, like Jemma and our fellow will be like, Maia, we're gonna do like this trend, and I'll be like, I've never heard of this. Like, it's just on a different planet as far as those things are concerned. So it's so helpful to have their input.
All right, well, we're good if y'all are good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jemma and Maia. That was great. Very interesting presentation. And thank you everyone for coming and for coming to our conference today. This is our last session of the day. So before we end, I'm going to put a link to the feedback survey in the chat. And please take a moment to fill it out. Your feedback is important to us and helps us determine next year's conference theme and programming. So please tell us what you think. And we'll also be emailing this link out tomorrow if you don't feel like filling it out right now. So yeah, thank you all for attending and we'll see you next time.